It's great to be here, here as a county commissioner, but also as a proud member of the Shelton Mason Chamber of Commerce, and so I'm happy to support the efforts of the Chamber and all that they do to help support our local business community. So I appreciate everybody coming out today, and I'll be talking to you a little bit about the state of Mason County. And after the year that Mason County has been having, I think everybody was like, said the new guy. So if you're not familiar, these are the members of the Mason County Board of Commissioners. Commissioner Randy Netherland from District 1, so the north end of the county. Me out in Union in the western part of the county, and then Commissioner now Terry Drexler from the District 3. So this was us on the first day of first meeting of the year, and back in January. So my first meeting as a county commissioner. 5 minutes in, I was nominated and elected to be chair of the Board of County Commissioners. And if you're wondering, that right there, that is the look of just abject horror. And you wonder, what did I get myself into? But I can assure you, it has been a wonderful experience, even with some of the valleys that we've been through. There are plenty more peaks than valleys. So I want to touch on a few issues that we've been facing this year and give a little bit of look ahead of what might be happening for the rest of the year. One of the things that I think is very important is to know what your organization's mission and objectives are. When I first came into office, we had our mission statement hidden away in our break room. And I was in there one day and I was looking at the wall and I thought, oh, what's that on the wall? And that was our mission statement. So we talked about it and we thought it was important so that we have an idea, and the public has an idea of what we're here to work toward as a county government. And so we've actually had this moved out into the chambers, and so it's one of the things that we can see every day when we go to work, and certainly when we have our meetings with the public, they can see as well. And I don't want to read the whole thing, but if you look at the first part, the mission of Mason County government is to provide essential and mandated services which will preserve and benefit the health, safety, and welfare of the general public. And so those, for me at least, are the guiding principles and part of the way that I influence my decision making as a county commissioner. This is so I have to give full credit where it's due. So I gleaned heavily from Senator Joe Fain, who's in the Auburn area, has a similar sign in his office. But if you come to my office, these are the questions that I ask for folks that come in and want to talk about whether they're a county staff or a member of the community that has a topic that they want to discuss or an item that they want to bring forward for our consideration. And so welcome to my office. Please be able to discuss the following questions. This is my approach. What do you want? I think it's important for us to be able to define a program or a policy. I think that's an important first step. How much will it cost now and in the future? That's a huge issue that we have to take on in the county. It's not just looking at what something is going to cost here and now, but what is the cost of this going to be out year 2, 3, 4, 5. So having a longer view of how we approach our programming and policy making in the county is important to me. How will you measure success? I want to know what, if this comes to fruition, what does this look like from a standpoint of, is this a successful program? Are we meeting are we being good stewards of the people's money when we implement this? Fourth, how will you be held accountable for failure? Pretty easy from my standpoint. I'm held accountable every time I'm on a ballot. And so it's important for me then to look at the programs that we're instituting and what we're funding and talk about how we'll be held accountable for those failures that may happen. Not every policy comes forward perfectly. And so we have to go through a process of defining how we're going to be held accountable. And then finally, going back to the previous slide, but this is, how will this help us meet our county mission? So again, health, safety, well-being of the residents of Mason County. So that's a little flavor of what I look at when I'm evaluating policy proposals and that kind of thing. As chair, one of the first things that I thought was important for us to do was to sit down as a commission and to establish a work plan for 2017. I think it's important for us to have a roadmap of where we want to go, things that we want to achieve, and bring together all of the commissioners to kind of talk about our priorities. So we sat down early in the year and came up with, this is just a short list of things that we had on our agenda. Land use and development regulations. So how do we improve our code to stimulate growth? It's important when we talk about our tax base and how we fund our county services. How do we stimulate growth? Moving from allowed to disallowed uses in code so that we make it more broad, so that people know, have a little bit more flexibility. Continue working on a new jail or criminal justice facility. This was a big topic for a number of years. We hear pretty often about the constraints that our jail facility downtown has. And so engaging with the criminal justice community to look at options for moving forward on that. Hearst is another big issue that's out there. The Hearst ruling from the Supreme Court, how we maintain and manage our water, how we allow for growth in a sustainable way. We have a lot of partners with that. The Squaxin Island Tribe is partnered. Appreciate their help and willingness to work with us, as well as the building and development community. A lot of work has been done and needs to continue to be done in the legislature, but short of them providing us with a solution, it'll fall back on counties to manage the resource. And so we want to be proactive in those conversations. And then the Belfair Sewer, phases of funding, partnerships. Earlier this year, the commission went out for capital budget money from the state in order to pursue a connection with Port of Bremerton, who is looking to expand. So that's one option. Some other options have been talked about with residential phasing in the Belfair area. We need to get this sewer system financially stable. Partially we do that through growth, and I think we also do it through partnerships that can help us meet those needs. So our 2017 budget, one of the main things that the commission does is set the budget. The 2017 budget was adopted December 5th of last year. And this is just a quick breakdown of how much it was and where the money goes. We have a two bottom line budget. So we have salaries and benefits, operations, and all those both combined to have a bottom line there. So this was the big issue for most of this year for us. It's nobody's desire to run for public office to have to cut nearly $2 million 6 months in, but we found ourselves in a position because of our reliance on reserve funding in order to continue to fund ongoing expenses. We have a little bit of, this is simple commissioner math at the top there. Rising costs plus reduced revenues equal budget cuts. We couldn't sustain the amount of spending that we had been budgeting for. And so what we found over the past few years is that we had a 28% increase in spending and costs and a 12% increase in revenue. So, it was pretty much a recipe for having to make some cuts and make some very difficult decisions. We have some of the issues or things that we were spending our reserve funds on are listed out there. And some of those are just sort of the cost of doing business. Some of those, certainly added up to quite a bit of money. And so we needed to make a budget cut of about 7.3%. Next year, we'll be looking to cut about another 10% from the 2018 budget in order to meet our revenue projections. Solutions. So it's never really a good idea to come forward and only talk about problems unless you're going to be prepared to talk about solutions. So the first one, sometimes it seems obvious, but sometimes the obvious needs to be repeated. Live within our means. Whether it's in your own personal budget or the budget that you run for your business, we have to live within our means. We have to recognize what the revenue is that we're collecting, and then we have to be able to prioritize the things that we fund with it. So let's take point 2 there is better articulate what our priorities of government are for the 2018 budget. We've also begun the process of moving to a 2-year budget. It was one of the things that when I came into office I proposed that we explored simply because it would help with stability and predictability. If we can extend the time out that we're looking for our budgets, then we'll have a better understanding of how we're spending our money and potentially prevent some of the revenue and expenditure problems that we've had. Also, we're working toward a balanced budget resolution. Again, this goes back to living within your means. So don't spend more than you take in. So some of these, like I said, some of these things are obvious maybe to some of you, but it's important to restate what our budget priorities are and not spend more than we take in. And then better define uses for reserve funds, emergencies, unanticipated one-time expenditures. They can't fund ongoing expenses. And then the levy lid lift, and this is the one that we're knee-deep in this conversation. There'll be a particular interest for voters this November. So it's an opportunity for county voters to weigh in on the level of service they expect or want from their government and how they want it to be funded. And it was a lid lift of our property tax levy that would generate about $3.4 million. The increase in cents per thousand would still keep us under the maximum amount of levy allowed by law. We received comment from all the junior taxing districts. Certainly, they're going to be paying close attention to this as it affects our state maximum required levy, but we chose to go a route that would allow voters to weigh in on a levy that would not put us at the maximum amount. If you receive an exemption, if you have a senior exemption or others, a lot of those things still apply, so you'll be able to work with the assessor on making sure that if you have those exemptions, what you need to do to keep them and those kinds of things should this pass. So we'll see that on the ballot in November. Okay, so questions? I put my contact information up there for anybody that would be interested in jotting it down. Those are the best ways to reach me, but I think I have a few minutes left, and I'd be happy to take any questions from the audience. Going once. All right, well, thank you so much. I appreciate your time today. Eric, we do have a question.
What would you tell people that would say this is your mess and clean it up?
Well, yeah, absolutely. Well, it is our mess, and we are cleaning it up. And there's a number of ways that we're doing that. One, as I said, we need to live within our means. That's way number one. Number two, passing a balanced budget resolution that says, Commission, you are going to live within your means. You're going to budget based on revenue collected, not spend down those reserve funds. And the levy lid lift is simply an opportunity for voters to say yes or no to a certain level of spending within the county government. If it doesn't pass, then we'll have to be prepared to make the 10.3% worth of cuts. And in the coming weeks, the other elected officials in the county, sheriff, auditor, treasurer, prosecutor, judges, et cetera, we'll be talking probably about what those cuts look like to their offices and what that means to the level of service that people expect in the county. So it is our mess. We are cleaning it up. And there's a number of ways to go about doing that.
I noticed you use the label Belfair sewer system. I believe there's at least one other commissioner that objects to the term Belfair. Is that a Belfair problem, or do you consider that a county-wide problem?
Well, it's called the Belfair sewer simply because it's in Belfair, but it's a county-wide issue because it draws down money that's collected county-wide. And so it's a county problem from the perspective that we're putting county money into it. We need to solve it at that level in order to make it solvent at the local level. All right, very good. Thank you, everybody.